When Denver paused the use of vehicle tracking cameras to prevent ICE from using them to find immigrants, the city lost what police insist has been a valuable crime-fighting tool. Our Mark Salinger takes a closer look.
A lot can change in a month. Like whether these small cameras at Denver intersections are crucial crime-stopping tools or dangerous surveillance mechanisms.
Council Resolution 25-0413 has failed.
Last night, Denver City Council voted unanimously to not approve additional funding for flock cameras that read license plates and track cars. Council members worried the data would be shared with immigration authorities to track and deport people.
And those cameras are silently taking an image of every single car that drives by.
I think since maybe January 20th of this year, those concerns are greatly heightened.
But just last month, council members heard from Denver police and the DA's office about how helpful the cameras are at helping to solve crimes.
This flock has been a great tool for all of us.
This system has been really invaluable.
It is a wonderful tool, again, not only for us, but for the victims.
Denver police says the cameras have led to 275 arrests, 180 recovered stolen vehicles, and helped solve everything from homicides to shootings to multi-million-dollar jewelry heists.
Although they are great at reading license plates, they also are extremely useful in cases where the license plates have been removed.
But that wasn't enough to convince council members the public safety benefits outweighed the threat of ICE getting their hands on tracking information.
One of the agencies that has full access to our database and the 30 days of images contained within it is the El Paso County Sheriff's Office, which we know has just reaffirmed its commitment to actively working with ICE agents.
The El Paso County Sheriff's Office seems open to sharing data with ICE. They told me today they use the cameras to help solve crimes and work with ICE as much as Colorado law allows them to. The mayor of Denver put out a statement yesterday before the city council vote encouraging council members to vote against funding the program beyond the end of the year. The mayor's office told me today they're not against using the cameras in the future, they're just worried about the information being shared with ICE, Kyle.
A lot of focus on Denver because they're the ones backing away from the use of these cameras, but it truly is a surveillance state.
Yes, more than 70 police departments and sheriff's offices across the state use these flock cameras in some capacity. I'm told within the last 30 days, they've tracked about 2 million cars across the state, with about 80,000 setting off an alert that they were involved in some sort of crime or missing persons case.
Tell you what, next time our wives are trying to figure out where we are, just call police. I'm sure they're tracking us. All right, Mark, thank you. One of the most controversial bills at the state capitol this year, Trans Bill of Rights, got through the Senate today after it was stripped of a lot of the provisions that drew criticism. In the past week, Democrats have drastically watered down this bill, getting rid of a provision opposed by conservatives that would have allowed judges in child custody cases to consider whether parents affirm their child's gender. Late last night, the bill's sponsors also agreed to drop a shield law clause that would have protected parents from out-of-state prosecution if they helped their child access gender-affirming medical care. So what is left of this thing? Well, the final version of the bill broadly affirms the state's position that intentionally misgendering or dead-naming a trans person is discriminatory, especially in context of school or in a workplace. It would also make it easier for trans people to update official documents like driver's licenses and marriage certificates, and it would make school dress codes more inclusive.
House Bill 1312, in its amended form, ensures the right of Coloradans to change their name regardless of their gender identity and be called by that name. I'm disappointed by what has been removed from this bill, protections that are very necessary, protections that we should not rest on, but rather continue to pursue relentlessly.
The bill's sponsors also dropped some provisions in there updating the state's anti-discrimination laws. That actually got pushed back. What was in there got pushback from LGBTQ advocacy groups and legal experts because they worried the way the changes were being made, it could take down the entire anti-discrimination architecture in Colorado. The House has to sign off on these changes before that bill will go to Democratic Governor Jared Polis. Governor's facing a bit of a showdown with his own party in the final days of the session. Democrats have handed him some L's on his affordable housing priorities this week, and they're now daring him to veto a measure that makes it easier for unions to organize. Polis said right here on Next he was going to veto that change to the labor law if businesses aren't on board, and they're not. Two Polis-backed bills are not going to make it past the final hurdles this session. Last night, Democrats postponed a bill that would have made it easier for churches to put affordable housing on their property. Polis loved that one. And today, a Senate committee killed a Polis-backed reinsurance plan that would have helped insurance companies cover liability in natural disasters like wildfires. Homeowners would have funded that plan through everybody paying a 1% fee on your policy. The governor said it would ultimately drive down insurance premiums and keep people from leaving wildfire risk areas. But Democrats joined Republicans in voting against the bill, said that Colorado voters are sick and tired of extra fees. Today, Democrats in the House also passed that big labor-backed bill that we've been talking about for weeks now, the one that makes it easier for unions to organize and collect dues from non-members. The governor straight up said this thing is dead on arrival without the support of the business community. The Trump administration has been running commercials on television lately, urging non-citizens to leave the country voluntarily, with a promise to hunt down people who stay without authorization. Yet our Angeline McCall found that self-deportation is not just as simple as getting on a plane or a bus.
After so much sacrifice to get to the United States, immigrants are faced with a choice.
We've actually seen quite a number of people seeking self-deportation.
Andrea Loya, executive director of nonprofit Casa de Paz, says it's an option people are considering really for the first time.
They're at the end of whatever situation they've been in. They're in desperation, essentially.
The process seems simple. Book a flight and leave. Loya says it's actually pretty complicated.
There's actually no clear process. We, as Casa de Paz, have asked other attorneys, have asked other groups before, what this means for community, what this means for process, and there's not a really clear answer.
She says people have tried turning themselves into ICE here in Colorado when self-deporting, but they're usually turned away.
They cannot take them in, is what we've heard, at least not in the Centennial facility. So Casa de Paz actually has received calls in the past of, hey, can you help us with transportation for this person because we're not going to take them in.
The Trump administration is now promising that migrants who self-deport and declare their decision on the CBP One app will receive $1,000 after they return to their home country.
No, I would not trust a single thing that this administration says because they currently have people sitting in El Salvador for nothing. So what this current administration continues to offer for people to leave is just a fake promise in our eyes.
We know that self-deportation can be extremely complicated, especially depending on your country of origin. To actually board a flight, you need a passport, of course, something we know, for instance, many Venezuelans don't have and can't get. Consulate and embassy services are suspended because of U.S. and Venezuelan relations, leaving many people unable to self-deport, even if they want to. Kyle?
Right. It feels like the chaos is so kind of baked into this, right? So what happens? So somebody wants to self-deport, they don't have that clear path, like all of the tens of thousands of Venezuelans that have come to or through Denver in the last couple of years.
Right, using Venezuelans as an example, what I've heard people do is because we don't have a consulate or embassy that allows them to actually have their passports processed or get documents, is they actually have to go to the U.S.-Mexico border, cross into Mexico, then go to a place like Mexico City, wait for their documents to be processed, then get a flight back from there to Venezuela.
It's interesting. You hear the slogan, self-deport, 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 and I appreciate you actually taking us through the process a little bit. Angeline McCall, thank you. The lone person criminally charged after the latest high-profile immigration raid in Colorado is going to stay in federal custody. There's no indication this person is here illegally. This is a U.S. soldier who got roped in on drug charges. The DEA detained more than 100 people the night of the raid in Colorado Springs, and so far, Sergeant Juan Rodriguez from Fort Carson is the only person we know of facing federal charges. The FBI says in addition to being a soldier, he's a drug dealer. He was operating a security company for the nightclub, employed other service members in that work. Court documents show his mother-in-law owns the nightclub and some others around the Springs. Rono Rodriguez is accused of selling cocaine to an undercover agent 5 days before the raid. His defense attorney argues this is a low-level drug case, talking less than half an ounce of cocaine. Today, a judge ordered Rono Rodriguez to stay in jail. He'll be back in court next week. Pueblo's voters are living out a dream. They have the chance to fire their energy provider because of recent rate increases. But it turns out the alternatives could be even more expensive. And a city in Colorado has gotten bamboozled into publicly praising Scientology tonight. It's not the first time that's happened around here. That's next. Tina Peters had a day in prison yesterday. She finally got President Donald Trump's personal plea for her freedom. Trump called her a hostage, said she'd been locked up by communists. But her official case to get out of prison through, like legal channels, not political pressure, that hit a snag. In a Truth Social post last night, President Trump directed his Department of Justice to take all necessary action to help secure the release of Colorado's most famous election denier. The former Mesa County clerk was prosecuted by a fellow Republican last year, convicted by a jury in Ruby Red Mesa County for her admitted role in a breach of election systems and an unsuccessful search for Trump's election rigging lies about voter fraud. Trump's DOJ has already gotten involved in Peters' attempt to get out of jail while she appeals her 9-year sentence. They've told the judge they're reviewing whether her conviction was politically motivated. Peters was convicted on state charges, so it's unclear how the federal government could get involved. She's still trying to get a federal court to grant her bond while she appeals her conviction. Yesterday, the magistrate judge, considering her request, said that she had not properly raised her claims in the lower courts, hadn't gone through the right process. So he told her to either change her request or try again in a year.
Tracking some good heavy rain showers in Denver, Fort Collins, and Greeley tonight. Just checked the rain gauge in the 9 News backyard, and we have about 3/4 of an inch in the gauge, and the rain is still coming down on I-25 as folks are trying to get home from work and school and after-school activities. In the mountains, it's a winter wonderland. If the ski resort that you love is still open, you'll be skiing tomorrow on possibly well over a foot of snow. We have slushy roadways, a little bit of accumulation on the road, but most of it on the hillsides, and it's snowing south of Denver in Castle Rock, coating the ground, covering the ground, and it's possible we'll see a brief rain-snow mix here in the city. It's been chilly today. Temperatures in the mid-40s, and the wind, while not gusty, coming in out of the east, is an upslope wind that will keep that moisture in place overnight and through part of the day tomorrow. Huge storm north of Albuquerque, counterclockwise swirl, bringing all that water up into Colorado from the south. Out ahead of it, we're tracking severe and tornadic thunderstorms. Houston, Memphis, Wichita, travel impacts there. Push of heavy rain coming up from the south. Portions of southern Colorado are closing in on 2 inches of rain. Snow levels coming down to about 7,000 and 8,000 feet. And just outside Castle Rock and Colorado Springs, it's still snowing. Denver not seeing a ton of heavy rain right at the moment, but that is not indicative of what is happening all around us. And this rain and snow will continue overnight with a winter storm warning in play through 6 a.m. tomorrow. So just keep that in mind if your travel takes you into the mountains and foothills, where we could see an additional 4 to 8 inches of snow tonight, and rain, more heavy rain coming in tonight, especially in southeastern Colorado. So temperatures are going to trend cool for the next few hours, but after tomorrow we warm up. Upper 60s Thursday, mid 70s Friday, and sunshine and 80s for Mother's Day Sunday.
It's election night in Pueblo. Last chance for voters to weigh in on whether to break up with Black Hills Energy. City leaders first proposed ditching the utility last year in the face of a massive rate hike, but finding a cheaper alternative for power down there is easier said than done. City leaders want voters to give them the go-ahead to cancel their agreement with Black Hills and acquire the energy infrastructure, but only if, quote, that is determined feasible. That is a big old if. The city commissioned a preliminary study that determined the city lacked the resources and money to set up their own city-run utility. Black Hills estimates it would cost Pueblo upwards of $1 billion to buy the transmission infrastructure. Regardless, supporters of this divorce say it's time to look at alternatives due to concerns over high rates and not enough oversight of Black Hills. The utility asked for a whopping 18% rate hike earlier this year. State regulators cut that in half. If voters approve ending the agreement, Pueblo says Black Hills will continue to service the city until they get a new provider. Leaders would have until August to find an alternative, or they'd have to wait until 2030 to get out of the deal with Black Hills. The city of Brighton is preparing to publicly praise Scientology tonight. Turns out a bunch of other cities have already done the same thing and then backtracked really quickly. Hey, a reminder, you can catch Next streaming each night, 6 p.m. on 9 News Plus. And Next is now a podcast each weeknight, wherever you get your podcasts. Elected leaders in Brighton are preparing to praise Scientology tonight with an official proclamation, despite the decades-long history of politicians who have backpedaled and apologized for publicly celebrating the religious movement that critics say is a dangerous cult. The public relations team for Scientology continues to look for elected leaders willing to repeat their pre-written praise word for word, and this is not the first time they found politicians in Colorado willing to do it.
I know you're all about target attainment and reaching high goals.
When Scientologists opened a location in Denver in 2012, City Councilman Albus Brooks praised Scientology with words written for him by that group, which also added this jazzy soundtrack to the video.
I've seen a lot of groups. I've seen a lot of organizations. There's plenty of talk out there, but you are one of those groups doing the work.
Brooks says he now wishes he would have been more discerning, and he didn't know he was reading a script that was generating promotional content for the highly controversial movement. When politicians are convinced to praise Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard, that's him in the big photo next to the stage in Denver, Scientology keeps careful track. A website chronicles thousands of recognitions and proclamations.
Thank you, everyone, for your reports and being well represented here in Brighton.
The latest celebration of Scientology is scheduled to come out of Brighton, Colorado, where city council meetings are not always well attended from start to finish. The city manager told a local newspaper the request for an official proclamation praising Scientology came from the community. That's not true. This email shows it came to the mayor from a PR rep for Scientologists in California. Both Brighton's mayor and city manager were unavailable to speak to us. The Church of Scientology declined to tell us how many municipalities it asked to praise its work this year, but it did direct us to read a lengthy statement on air that did not answer our questions. We'll pass.
And we're not saying that we agree or disagree with the content of any of these proclamations that we've made over the years.
In March, small city in Michigan got an earful over their pro-Scientology proclamation. There are decades worth of news reports about elected leaders from small-town Alabama to the governor of Illinois praising Scientology and then retracting it. In one case in Oklahoma, a city council celebrated Scientology's founder, then realized what they did and unanimously rescinded the proclamation before the meeting ended.
Spokeswoman for the city of Brighton says city staff will propose a policy to better handle proclamation requests at the next meeting after the measure praising Scientology tonight. We're back with your feedback next. Thank you. Whole lot of feedback about Denver's decision to discontinue use of vehicle tracking cameras for fear that ICE could use them for immigration. Doug says, again, the lefties in Denver are trading the rule of law to make criminals feel safe. Probably worth noting, I'm not arguing with you here, Doug, but again, this distinction is important because it imbues a lot of our coverage on this. Not everybody who is in this country without authorization is a criminal under criminal law, right? If you're just simply here without authorization, that's a civil violation. If you have entered illegally, misdemeanor, re-entered illegally, that can be a felony, right? Just got to remember the distinction there. Ryan Denver says longtime Democrat cannot believe that they're going to override the public safety benefits of the license plate cameras. I don't think this is the last time that we talk about this. See you next time.